What's up, y'all? Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel. I'm happy to have you here. Honestly, this is going to be a quick little message because this is something that was just dropped into my spirit this week and I don't even fully know why, but I'm just going to be obedient, speak it, and we'll see what comes out of it. But basically, the message that I wanted to share is just because it didn't work before doesn't mean it won't work now. And when I heard that, like, I don't really know what that was about. I don't know what that was directed to. I don't even know who it's for, but I was just like, okay, I felt something on that, so here it is. Just because it didn't work before doesn't mean it won't work now. When I thought about that statement, I also thought about the story in the Bible where Jesus tells Simon Peter to cast down his net. So specifically, I'm going to read a little bit from that section. It is in the book of Luke. It's chapter 5 and it starts at verse 1. It actually goes all the way through verse 11, I believe. Basically, a little bit of context. Jesus is over by the lake and he happens to see that there were some boats over there, but the fishermen were not in the boats. They were washing their nets. And then starting at verse 3, it says, "Then he got into one of the boats, which was Simon's, and asked him to put out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the multitudes from the boat. When he had stopped speaking, he said to Simon, 'Launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch.' But Simon answered and said to him, 'Master, we have toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net.' And when they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, and their net was breaking. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both the boats so that it began to sink. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, 'Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord.' For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of the fish which they had taken. And so also were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, 'Do not be afraid. From now on you will catch men.' So when they had brought their boats to the land, they forsook all and followed him." So the main part about that made me think about just because it didn't work before doesn't mean it won't work now is the part where in verse 4, Jesus tells Simon to launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. And then he responded saying that we have toiled all night and caught nothing, but nevertheless at your word I will let down the net. That was the New King James Version, but in the New International Version, in verse 5 it says, "Simon answered, 'Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything, but because you say so, I will let down the nets.'" It made me think about how Simon had been working at it all that time and had gotten nothing. But in that one moment when Jesus said to let down your nets, he was able to catch an abundance of fish, so much so that the boat started breaking and he had to call his friends over to help him to get all of the fish. So just because it didn't work before doesn't mean it won't work now. Doesn't mean that God is not going to equip you. Does not mean that God is not going to do something for you. Just because it didn't work before does not mean that it's just never going to work and that you have to give up and try something completely different and change course. It does not mean that. It just means that you have to hold on until God says to try it again. And as soon as he says try it again, just expect for something big to happen. Expect for it to break. Expect for your nets to overflow. So much so that it's going to be overflow not only for you, but then for those who are around you as well. Not only did their nets start to break once they were catching all of those fish, but when they started putting them into the other boat, the boats were beginning to sink. So that just lets you know there was such an abundance happening just because Simon Peter was able to be obedient in that moment after doing something that he had done all that time and wasn't catching anything. Just because he did it that one specific time, it resulted in a huge reward. He reaped what he sowed and God was able to bless him right there in that moment. So just because it did not work before does not mean that you have lost your opportunity, does not mean that you are no good at it, does not mean that it is not for you to do. It might just mean that your time has not yet come, but when God says to do it this next time, it just might be the time where you reap the harvest, where you see everything that you wanted to happen before, when you finally see it happen. Now is not the time to give up, okay? Now is the time to continue to try and try again, and don't just do it by yourself, do it with God this time, because when you cast those nets down the next time and God is involved, and you just never know what it is that he is going to do exceedingly abundantly above all that you could ask, think, or imagine. And it doesn't even stop there, because then later on in the verses, it literally says in verse 10, that Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will catch men." So he went from fishing to get fish to then fishing for people, a fisher of men, they would say. And so his assignment changed. Not only did he finally get what he had been wanting and trying to get that entire time, but he got overflow, and then he got a whole entire new assignment. So there's so much that comes out of just simply your obedience when God tells you to do something. Even though you might be frustrated that you've been doing it this whole time and it hasn't been working, don't count yourself out, and don't count God out either, because you just never know. If you try again, if you go for it again, you just never know what kind of catch you are going to get. Okay. Alrighty, y'all, that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. I hope it blessed somebody. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.